Morning, guys. Saturday morning breaking down the UFC card. Video for the PFL card is already up, so that'll be on this channel. You guys should be able to see that. As well, loaded day of fights. I will be on the YouTube channel Takedown Live all day on Saturday. We'll turn on the feed around 1 o'clock, and then it will just be on from PFL all the way through UFC. So I'll be taking a lot of breaks and stuff, but the chat room will be wide open. So you want to just come in and come out and join us throughout the day. Follow fights. That'll be on the YouTube channel. Take Down Live. If you guys could hit the like button, leave me a comment, tell me what your best bet is. Let's just get right into the fights. Mohamed Naimov and Erik Silva. I had high hopes for Erik Silva coming in off of Contender Series. Once again, a Contender Series guy just comes onto the UFC and doesn't look very good. And, he had coming into Contender Series, had really good ground game, shows it off, and then just gets dominated by TJ Brown. So he just kind of looked out of place. He looked very tentative, nervous. It's like his skills just didn't translate once he moved up a level, and TJ Brown ain't great. And then meanwhile, you got Mohamed Naimov, who, comes in off of Tough Enough, gets the crazy win over Jamie Malarkey, which I still say the fight was stopped way too early and he was losing. But then comes back and amazing win against Nathaniel Wood when he had the full camp. So I got to believe Naimov is the real deal here. You're probably not betting this individually because Naimov is such a big favorite, but Naimov has got to be the pick. I just can't see what you've seen from Erik Silva in his last fight to make you want to pick him. So the pick is Naimov. It's got to be a parlay piece. I would say this fight probably goes the distance because as bad as Silva looked, I know he got finished against TJ Brown. I think Naimov is just going to kind of pull away as this fight gets near the end. So maybe you might look at Naimov by decision, but honestly, that's probably just getting way too cute. Just stick with Naimov to win, put it in a parlay, and go from there. Victor Altamirano, Felipe dos Santos. So Felipe dos Santos comes in. He fights Manuel Kopp and did so good that Manuel Kopp, even after the fight, complimented him. And this just really came out of nowhere. This performance from Felipe dos Santos, because he was supposed to fight on Contender Series, he didn't. So he comes in, he goes toe to toe against Kopp. Now I had heard rumors that Kopp was hurt afterwards, and Felipe Santos is only 7-1, but he showed good striking. Kopp did touch him and beat him up a little bit on the feet. So you have Victor Altamirano, who I am just not high on at all. He's beaten Vinicius Salvador and Daniel Lacerda, two of the worst fighters in UFC. Tim Elliott dominated him. Carlos Hernandez, a really, really close one. So I guess when I look at this fight, I'm trying to figure out what we can make of Felipe dos Santos, and I get worried when these guys come in off a very short notice and they have a good performance in the UFC because they have nothing to lose. Adrenaline. Like, they don't have to overthink it. And then they get into a long camp. And then they get into the ring and they're overthinking it. They get a little tentative. They get a little cautious. So this fight is a real tough one for me. I know Felipe dos Santos is a pretty big favorite, -300. I just don't think I'm willing to lay -300 on him. Now, that being said, I'm not putting my hard-earned money on Victor Altamirano. I'm not sold on what he does great. Okay, he's well-rounded. I guess he can kind of do a little bit of everything, but I think that Felipe dos Santos is much more suited for a striker. So if Altamirano's game plan were to get him on the ground and try and sneak out some rounds, I would say, okay, great, now I might be on Altamirano, but I just don't trust him. So ultimately, this fight is going to be a pass for me. I can't get to the window on who's going to win or a total in that one. So Altamirano, Felipe dos Santos, it's going to be a pass. I would not lay -300 and put Felipe dos Santos in a parlay today. No chance. Luis Rodriguez and Dennis Bondar. What do we know about Luis Rodriguez? Well, coming out of the Lux Fight League, this fight against Angel Hernandez. I mean, Angel Hernandez, to come out in round 3, Angel Hernandez takes a step back and just steps on his ankle wrong, and the fight is over. I was not impressed with Luis Rodriguez at all. Don't see a whole lot of skills there. When was that fight? Yeah, I mean, almost a year ago. So call it 9 months. So it was a long time ago, and you look like there was a 6 month break. So this is a pretty long break for him. This is a guy that had a break from 2020 to 2022, but then bang, fights a bunch of fights in a row. So this is kind of a long layoff for him. So I'm not sure what he's been working on. Bondar, not that great. Loses to Carlos Hernandez. Listen, he got knocked out. Make no mistake, he got knocked out. Loses to Malcolm Gordon when he tries to post up and his arm breaks. Against Carlos Hernandez, though, I did like the pressure that Bondar put on him. I liked that he pushed forward. I liked that he kind of got into scraps, and I kind of think Carlos Hernandez is pretty decent. So my pick is going to be Bondar. Not real confident because you're betting on two guys that you don't really want to trust. But, yeah, I think Bondar is going to be the pick. I like that he's at least been in a couple of UFC fights. He's not going to be overwhelmed by the moment. Luis Rodriguez fighting in front of the home crowd. That could be a lot. Could see an adrenaline dump or maybe a little bit of nerves. So Bondar is going to be the pick. Not real confident in betting on this fight just because I don't have a whole lot of confidence in either one of these fighters. Claudio Puelles and Faris Ziam. So I'll start with Ziam. So Ziam, he's in UFC and, he gets cut and they bring him back. And he looks good. Like, he loses to Terrence McKinney, but he goes up against Figlock and looks really good. Like, he got immensely better, which is something you don't normally see. And then he gets a win against Jai Herbert. And I kind of like what's happened with Ziam here. He technically got cut by UFC. They bring him back, gets a second chance, and he's really improved his game. His striking looks good. He's long. He's got these really good jabs and these really good strikes. So 2 good decision wins, and he's fighting Claudio Puelles, who, unless he unveils new striking, which would be odd, this guy is, one-trick pony. He's grappling leg locks, and we saw what happened with Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker just was able to not go on the ground, strike on the feet, stay out of danger, and what happened was Claudio Puelles looked terrible. Like, it was kind of an embarrassing fight. That's all Hooker did. Hooker was like, I'm not even going to entertain going down to the ground. I'm not even going to even get remotely close to let you get a leg lock on me. And on the feet, it was no contest. Now, that was Dan Hooker. Can Faris Ziam do the same? Yeah, because the game plan is pretty obvious and pretty easy. So use your length, strike on the feet. Unless Puelles is just, like I said, unveil some brand new striking, I'm not really sure where the threat is going to be on the feet. So the pick is going to be Ziam. I'm kind of in on Ziam. I like these guys that have been through some adversity, come back, and they look good. They look a little bit extra motivated. So I think I get the motivation edge from Ziam, and I think Puelles is kind of a little bit on his back foot here in his UFC career after what happened with Dan Hooker, because if he doesn't get you in a knee bar, leg lock, whatever, he's rendered kind of worthless. So the pick is going to be Ziam in this one. Edgar Chairez and Daniel Lacerda. What an absolute circus here on this. I mean, so third time they're trying to fight. The first time Chairez gets the finish over Lacerda. They rule that the ref stopped it too early, that Lacerda wasn't tapping, which was an absolute joke. That should have been finished. So they book the fight again. Lacerda misses weight. They book it again. Both guys miss weight. I'm pretty sure UFC is done with Daniel Lacerda. This would not... I would love to know, like, in a week what happened with this. I wonder if they knew that Lacerda wasn't going to be able to make weight, so Chairez was just like, I'm not even going to try. Because Chairez missed by multiple pounds. Lacerda kind of barely missed. So you have both guys miss weight, and the UFC is like, you guys are fighting anyway. So Chairez and Lacerda are going to fight. Lacerda has cardio for maybe 2 minutes. Every single one of his fights in the UFC, he's been finished. loses by ground and pound against Vergara, loses to Altamirano, loses to Baby Fig, and loses to Jeff Molina. Chairez, I actually like Chairez, man. I think he's got some really good skills. He's powerful. He can submit you. He can knock you out. He comes in on short notice and kind of, I mean, listen, he got dominated. He got dominated by Tatsuro Taira, but he did not get finished, and that's just a really strange matchup. So they've been trying to make this Daniel Lacerda fight happen. I feel like this is kind of a gift for Chairez in front of the home crowd. They're making Lacerda fight this. So the pick is Chairez, and listen, I would not be surprised if Chairez gets the finish one more time. So Jesus Aguilar and Mateus Mendonca. This is another fight with two guys I don't really trust. I guess I'm going with Mendonca as a pick, but it's certainly not because I've seen anything in his last fight that makes me want to. I don't know what he was doing against Nate Maness. I seriously have no clue. He gets in this weird leg lock, and he just sits there and lets Nate Maness pound away, and he eventually gets knocked out on the ground. It was one of the strangest situations. I don't know why he didn't get out of... I don't know why he lost in the manner that he did, but he looked really foolish how he got finished. And it's too bad because previously against Javid Basharat, he looked good. I know he lost, but he lost to Basharat fairly short notice, and Basharat said something. He's like, yeah, that guy's tough. He's going to be good in the UFC. So he comes off of getting complimented by Javid Basharat to getting knocked out on the ground in some weird leg lock situation. So I don't know if we've seen exactly what Mateus Mendonca can actually do in the UFC because, Basharat was able to win, I believe, all three of those rounds. And Maness finishes him early. So I don't think we've seen a full workload from Mendonca. And meanwhile, you got Jesus Aguilera, who, I mean, talk about fighting the best and then fighting the worst. This guy lost to Tatsuro Taira, and he got finished by Taira, and then they give him Shannon Ross, who he knocks out in 17 seconds. So again, have we seen exactly what Jesus Aguilera can do? I don't think so. I went back and watched his Contender Series fight. He looked good. He's just small. He's undersized. He definitely has good cardio. So I will say that. If it gets in the later rounds, I kind of favor Jesus Aguilar, but I'm going to lean with Mendonca. I think he's got a little bit higher ceiling. I'm not really sold that Jesus Aguilar is a UFC caliber fighter. Maybe Mendonca isn't either, but I think Mendonca's got more tools. I think he's a little bit more powerful, and I think he's got maybe a little bit more polished ground game, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because Aguilar just looks a little sloppy. So pick is going to be Mendonca. Again, not a whole lot of confidence. Cristian Quinonez and Raoni Barcelos. You can get a good price on this fight to go the distance, and I think that's what it does because that's kind of what Barcelos does. That's where he's at in his career. What was it, 6 out of 7? 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Yeah, 6 out of 7 fights have gone the distance. The one that didn't, he got knocked out by Umar Nurmagomedov. And Barcelos, I kind of like him in this matchup here. Cristian Quinonez, I know he's 18-4, but he is a little raw in the UFC. He wins in the first round against Khalid Tala, whatever. But against Kong here, he rushed in too fast. He got popped, and that's why he got submitted. I mean, make no mistake, it wasn't like Kong worked an amazing takedown and got Kong hit him pretty hard because Quinonez leaves himself open, and he just made a very aggressive, sloppy mistake, and it cost him. And I think you can't do that against guys like Kong and Barcelos. So if Quinonez can get to Barcelos' chin, yeah, he can probably do some damage and wobble Barcelos. But I think Barcelos is going to do a good job of keeping the distance and using just some of that slick UFC veteran savvy. Probably I'm going to pull some moves that Quinonez hasn't seen yet. I think he draws the fight out, stays away from the power of Quinonez, because if Quinonez lands, it can do some real damage. But I trust the veteran nature of Barcelos here. I know these guys have fought pretty much the same amount of fights, but they're just different levels of fights. Barcelos been in the UFC for a while, so I think this fight to go the distance, is probably my best bet on this one. So I think Barcelos wins. I don't know. Maybe you could sprinkle Barcelos by decision, but regardless, I think it goes over, mostly just because of the way Barcelos has been fighting recently. Manuel Torres and Chris Duncan, I do not think this fight will go the distance. You've got Chris Duncan, who is 11-1. His one was against Borshev when he just got absolutely cracked. Comes back to Contender Series, and he was losing against Charlie Campbell. That was just one of the wildest first rounds you'll ever see in Contender Series. He was almost knocked out. I mean, he was almost unconscious. He lands a Hail Mary shot. They bring him back, barely beats Omar Morales, and then has a really good performance against, Ashamus. I was worried about him coming into UFC because of the close loss or the close win against Charlie Campbell. Give him credit. He's 2-0. So he's just a really, really tough guy. He can land some good shots. I thought his cardio looked really good in the last fight. And you got Manuel Torres, who just hits like an absolute truck. His elbow win against Nicolas Mata was like one of those they show the announcers of the UFC the announcers like, oh, like when they have a big knockout. That was me watching that knockout of Nicolas Mata. So he absolutely has insane knockout power. I mean, look at this. Round one. Just like, okay, we get it. You can knock guys out. I like Torres because he just needs to land one of those big ones. And I watched Duncan on Contender Series get hit really hard, and I think Torres can get to him once. I love the aggressive nature of Torres. I love how hard he hits. I love his confidence, and I think he knocks out Chris Duncan. So my pick on this one is actually going to be Torres by KO. I think if this goes the distance, it's Duncan's all day because he pulls ahead in rounds 2 and 3. But if it ends early, I think it's going to be Manuel Torres. So you could do an under, but I think I'm just going to take Torres by finish to win that one. Yazmin, Jauregi, and Sam Hughes. Sam Hughes being an underdog, what a surprise. Boy, they give her some interesting fighters, don't they? So, Sam Hughes is, 3-4 in her UFC, career. Loses Tisha Torres, Luma Lukbomi, and Luana Pinheiro. But, she does have wins against Estela Nunez, Elise Reed, and Jacqueline Amorim. I don't know, man. She was almost unconscious against Jacqueline Amorim. Amorim wrapped up rear naked chokes. And credit to Sam Hughes because she's a pit bull. She did not give up. But Amorim kind of had an adrenaline dump after that and just got really, really tired. But in the first round, Amorim had her on the ground, and Amorim had the arm under the chin. Hughes was able to fight out, showed great defense, comes back, and gets the win. And this is just going to be a much, much different animal. Jauregi, insane power. Listen, she just came out last fight against Nice Gomes with her hands down. Wasn't ready to start the fight. Made a critical error, and it cost her because Gomes popped her and gets knocked out within 20 seconds. I just think, make no mistake, she's not going to do that again. And when she unloads, she can absolutely unload. That fight against Lucinda was awesome. She gets the round 2 ground and pound against Estela Nunez. My only concern is that Sam Hughes' cardio is awesome. If she weathers the early storm, yeah, she can make this fight interesting. Does she have the power to match Jauregi? Absolutely not. Does she have the ground game? Maybe. I don't think we've seen the ground game of Jauregi. So my pick is going to be Jauregi. It would not surprise me if she knocked out Sam Hughes. It would also not surprise me if Sam Hughes somehow takes her down to round 2. It would surprise me if Sam Hughes got beat up in round 1. Round 2 takes Jauregi down. Jauregi doesn't look very good, and Sam Hughes wins some crazy split decision. So, as big of a favorite as Yazmin is, I cannot get to the window on that one because this is a different fighter than what Jauregi has faced in UFC. Sam Hughes is different. So, also, if you would bet on Sam Hughes as the underdog, because I think she's been the underdog in all of her UFC fights, you'd be up because she's 3-4, but you're getting big plus money on it. So I can't ignore that Sam Hughes as an underdog has actually not been the worst bet in the world. So for purpose of the video, it's gonna be Jauregi, but am I worried about putting it in parlays? Yeah. it's a women's fight, and you got a UFC veteran who's seen a lot and been through a lot, and just maybe has that experience to make life a little bit difficult for Jauregi. But the fans want to see Jauregi come out, knock out Sam Hughes. She's certainly got the power to do it, so nothing would surprise me in this fight. But Jauregi will not be making my parlays. It's a little too risky. Raul Rosas against Ricky Tercios. Listen, this Rosas guy worries me. It's just the age and the immaturity. So it's not really his fault. The guy's 19 years old. And, we saw him get the win against Jay Perrin, gets the early rear naked choke, comes out against Cristian Rodriguez, almost gets the win in the first round. But then what happens? He gets tired. And Cristian Rodriguez grinds out a victory. Comes back, beats up Terrence Mitchell, who's awful, comes from that Alaskan series. But he tries to show off his striking, and he did show off his striking, and it was decently impressive. Okay, that's fine. They're giving him Ricky Tercios, and I just don't know what to make of Ricky Tercios, because on one hand, you could say, well, the guy's had 3 UFC fights. He's also been on the Ultimate Fighter, so the situation's not going to be too big for him. At the same time, he wins against Kevin Natividad, and he got taken down several times in there. I do like that Tercios has cardio, because that's been an issue for Rosas. So would it surprise me if Rosas got Tercios on the ground and couldn't finish him in round 1 and then got tired? No, that wouldn't surprise me. I guess I'm just worried about. So I bet on. I'm 2-1 betting on Rosas. I bet on him all 3 fights, and obviously the one he lost really cost me, and that one stuck out in my head. Now, the opponent he got last time was so bad you had to bet on him. His interview in the ring afterwards was truly bizarre. I don't know what team he has around him and if I trust them or not. He's going to be a really popular pick to win and win by submission. I smell a rat in this one. I'm not ready to get to the window on a 19-year-old. Is he a phenom? And yeah, but he said he's fighting in front of his family, which he hasn't been able to do before, so he's probably going to be all amped up. Again, I'm just not going to get there. Not going to get to the window on this fight. He's going to be a huge popular parlay pick, and I'm just going to say I just worry about this one because of the cardio of Tercios, and because of Rosas doesn't get the finish in the first round. I think it could be a problem. We haven't seen Tercios in a long time, and it's. Listen, I'm not betting on Tercios. I'm just telling you I'm worrying about a teenager, in another big fight when, he fought an absolute can. He won, but before that, he lost against a guy who's, been around the block. So, Daniel Zellhuber and Francisco Prado. I kind of like a sprinkle on Prado by KO. Zellhuber, 14-1, good skills, tall, good reach. God, does he leave his chin open. Man, does he leave his chin open. You can get to it. And he's gotten away with it in the UFC, but he took some shots from Christos Giagos. He took some shots from Bonetta, but he did lose in his UFC debut against Trey Ogden. Now I thought he looked better in the couple fights, and I thought the Trey Ogden fight he just looked really tentative in his UFC debut. So credit to him. He gets a really, really nice finish over Christos Giagos. I watched him get hit in the chin several times, and it hasn't cost him, but it's going to. You cannot keep going through these UFC fights and getting hit in the chin like that. Prado has got power. Knocks out Azatar. Absolutely floors him. And before that, he lost to Malarkey. Malarkey put out a really nice display, kind of nullifying that power. But you look at Prado, it's just a slew of finishes. And I worry about Zellhuber just putting that chin out there and getting wobbled, because if he does, Prado's going to jump all over him. If it goes the distance, it's Zellhuber all day, because I love his reach. His kicks are great. I really hope he keeps with those kicks, because I think they could be some of the best in the UFC with how long his legs are. He can fire from so far range that I think they're going to do a really good, nice job if he uses them against Prado. So a little sprinkle on Prado by KO, because if Prado does hit him in the chin, Zellhuber's going out. But really, I think the safe pick is Daniel Zellhuber to win by decision. I think Prado's actually got sneaky good cardio, so I wouldn't jump to the conclusion that Zellhuber is going to, run away and Francisco Prado is going to be exhausted in round 3. I don't think that's the case, but I just think over 3 rounds, Zellhuber probably pulls away and maybe Zellhuber by decision. But a sprinkle on Francisco Prado by KO at like plus 550, not the worst bet in the world. Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega. As much as I have not been on Yair Rodriguez in the past, I am all over him in this matchup against Brian Ortega. I bet against him against Max Holloway, and he just got schooled. I don't think I was on him on the Ortega fight. But then I thought he looked good against Josh Emmett. He looked good when he finished him. I was worried leading up to that because, at that time, I say at that time, it was just a year ago, but Emmett, we didn't see Emmett as like that old and that kind of, falling apart. But I don't know, Emmett hits really hard and Yair was able to kind of weather the storm, gets Emmett on the, I think Emmett pulled guard in that one and Yair kind of gets the finish. So, but then the fight I was looking at was Volkanovski here. And I know he got dominated by Volkanovski. So I thought that was just a really important fight for Yair. To be in there against Volk and get just that valuable learning experience, I thought that was so good for his career. I bet big on Volk in that one, and that was a nice little win. But I think Yair is much better than the last time when he fought Ortega. And round 1 was pretty close against Ortega last time. I thought Yair was kind of winning the fight. I know I've heard multiple differing opinions on that one. Regardless, it was close. And then Ortega has a shoulder injury. I don't like this big layoff from, we're coming up on a year and a half from Ortega. I think Yair is going to be a little bit more of the polished striker. Ortega, has the win against, a Korean Zombie, but, he lost to Volk, no shame in that, lost to Holloway. Those are the exact same results for Yair Rodriguez. But I like that Yair's fought a couple times since then. I like that he had that experience against Volkanovski because I just think it elevates his game here a little bit. So the pick is Yair Rodriguez, and I believe he's been training at this elevation. So I think we maybe get a little bit of a cardio advantage from Yair Rodriguez. But the layoff really worries me. I didn't think Ortega looked great in the first round against Yair last time, so my pick is going to be Yair Rodriguez. Brandon Moreno and Brandon Royval. I think these guys are really equal, and I'm going to go with Moreno actually fairly confidently, mostly because of the training and elevation, and this is what Moreno does. Royval's got decent enough cardio, but man, this is a tough ask. He lost the decision to Pantoja, and before that, though, Nicolau, he gets the flash knee knockout. It was a great win. Okay, submits Matt Schnell. That's, not great. Bontrain, whatever. It goes to the split decision, though. That's not great. And before that, loses to Pantoja and Moreno. Obviously, the shoulder injury against Moreno was a real bummer because that fight had a lot of hype around it. So I like what I've seen from Brandon Moreno. I know he lost a very, very close split decision against Pantoja, but man, that fight was awesome. Obviously, one judge changes one round, it goes the other way. I just think on the ground, Moreno has a little bit of the advantage, and cardio, he's going to have the big advantage here. So Royval, I think, to win is going to have to get a finish early, and that's just not, it's tough to do against Moreno. So I just think this ends up kind of being a fight where I could see it being close in the first couple rounds, and then Moreno takes the last couple rounds. So my pick is Moreno. I don't know if it gets finished. I could see Royval. I don't know. Maybe Royval gets a flash knockout on Moreno, but probably not, as Moreno's just next to impossible to knock out. Maybe if there's a finish, it might be more likely that Moreno gets finished over Royval. If Royval gets tired and, gets a little sloppy on the ground, maybe a weird submission or some ground and pound. But the pick is going to be Moreno. And normally I don't like betting on main events, but the cardio advantage, I think a little bit of the ground advantage goes to Brandon Moreno. So, that's going to be the pick there. So, quick recap. Naimov against Silva. Pick is Naimov, Altamirano, and Felipe dos Santos. I can't get to the window. I don't have a strong opinion. Bondar and Rodriguez. I like Bondar. A little bit more experience, but not excited to bet on either one of those guys. Ziam and Puelles. I like Ziam. I think Puelles is one-dimensional, and Ziam stays out of that trouble. Chairez over Lacerda. Chairez by finish. Lacerda just as 0-4 in the UFC, been finished in each one of those. Aguilar, Mendonca, slightly into Mendonca. I think he's got a little bit higher ceiling, but not a fight I want to bet on. Barcelos and Quinonez. I like Barcelos. Kind of pull some veteran moves, frustrate Quinonez, draw the fight out, go the distance. Torres and Duncan. I like the power of Torres. I think it gets to Duncan, and I think Torres gets the finish over Duncan. Jauregi and Sam Hughes, ever so slightly into Jauregi. Definitely not putting it in parlays. Hughes may have some tricks up her sleeve and can make this fight closer than I think it needs to be. Rosas and Tercios. I'll pick Rosas, but I just don't trust the 19-year-old in a. It's just too. I don't know. I feel like I work too hard for money to bet on a 19-year-old fighting in the UFC. I might look stupid, and Rosas runs through Tercios, but if he doesn't get the finish in the first round, I think Tercios could make it a little interesting. Zellhuber and Prado. Official pick is going to be Zellhuber by decision, but a sprinkle on Prado by KO at plus 550, not the worst bet in the world, as Zellhuber leaves himself way too open. Yair Rodriguez and Ortega. I really like Rodriguez in this spot. I don't like the layoff for Ortega. And Moreno over Royval. I really like Moreno to get the win over Royval. The cardio alone should be what makes the big difference as the rounds go on. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Leave me a comment. Tell me your best bet. 5% play is up at wagertalk.com. Go ahead and grab that. Good luck in your plays. We'll see everyone later.